I'm Sarah Martinez, 28, and 3 hours ago, I was the happiest woman alive, walking down the aisle in my grandmother's vintage lace dress to marry the man I thought was my soulmate. Marcus and I had been together for 4 years, and our wedding at St. Catherine's Church was everything I dreamed of, until I discovered his phone buzzing with Tinder notifications while he was in the shower at our honeymoon suite. The profile said, "Recently single and ready to mingle," with photos from our engagement shoot. My wedding ring was still warm on my finger as I scrolled through his conversations with 3 different women, all scheduled for dates this week, while I'd be at work thinking we were building our life together. What he doesn't know is that I'm not just a kindergarten teacher, I'm also the beneficiary of a $2 million trust fund that activates when I marry Dot, and now I'm about to show him exactly what happens when you betray a woman on her wedding day. Like and subscribe if you've ever discovered the person you loved most was living a complete lie. Just hours earlier, I had felt like I was living in a fairy tale. The morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Church as I stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by my bridesmaids. Maya, my maid of honor, had tears in her eyes as she helped me into my grandmother's dress, the same gown that had seen 3 generations of Martinez women walk down the aisle to their supposedly devoted husbands. "You look absolutely radiant, Sarah," Maya whispered, adjusting the delicate pearl buttons that ran down my spine. "Marcus is the luckiest man alive." If only we had known how wrong we were. The ceremony had been perfect in every way. 200 guests filled the pews, their faces glowing with joy as Marcus and I exchanged vows we had written ourselves. I can still hear his voice, trembling with what I thought was genuine emotion. "Sarah, you are my everything. From this day forward, I promise to love only you, to cherish only you, to be faithful only to you." The words felt like poetry then. Now they taste like poison. Our first dance was to At Last by Etta James, and Marcus held me so close I could feel his heartbeat against my chest. He whispered in my ear about how excited he was to start our life together, how he couldn't wait to wake up next to me every morning for the rest of our lives. The photographer captured every moment, our smiles, our laughter, the way Marcus looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. Those wedding photos are sitting in our honeymoon suite right now, mocking me with their lies. The reception had been magical too. Marcus gave a speech that made everyone cry, talking about how patient and understanding I was, how I'd made him a better man, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. My father, typically reserved, actually wiped away tears as he hugged Marcus and welcomed him to the family. Even my grandmother's friends, the ones who had watched 3 generations of Martinez marriages, commented on how genuinely in love we seemed. "That boy looks at you the way your grandfather looked at your grandmother," Mrs. Rodriguez had said, patting my hand. "You found yourself a keeper, Mia." We had cut the cake together, his hand over mine on the knife, feeding each other with gentle smiles instead of the playful cake smashing that some couples do. We were too mature for that, too respectful of each other. Or so I thought. The evening had ended with us dancing under string lights in the garden, just the 2 of us after all the guests had gone home. Marcus had spun me around and around, my dress flowing like silk in the warm breeze, both of us laughing until our sides hurt. "Mrs. Williams," he had said, using my new married name for the first time. "I love the sound of that." "I love you," I had replied, meaning it with every fiber of my being. 2 hours later, we were in our honeymoon suite at the Grand Palace Hotel, the same room where my parents had spent their wedding night 29 years ago. Marcus had carried me over the threshold, both of us giggling like teenagers, and gently set me down in the middle of the room surrounded by rose petals and champagne. That's when his phone started buzzing. Marcus's phone was an iPhone 13 in a black case. Unremarkable, except for the fact that it was currently destroying my entire world. He had left it on the marble nightstand while he went to shower, and the notifications kept coming ping after ping after ping. At first, I ignored it. Maybe it was work or his groomsmen congratulating us again. But when I heard the distinct Tinder notification sound, that same sound I used to hear when I was single, my blood ran cold. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it was wrong to go through someone's phone, especially my husband's, especially on our wedding night. But something deep in my gut was screaming that I needed to know what was making that sound. With trembling fingers, I picked up his phone. The lock screen showed 17 missed notifications, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw what they were. Tinder matches, Bumble messages, Hinge likes, and even a few from apps I didn't recognize. My hand shook as I tried to unlock his phone. We had shared our passcodes months ago. Mine was our anniversary date. His was his mother's birthday. The phone unlocked immediately, and I was transported into a nightmare I never saw coming. His Tinder profile was the first thing that appeared. The main photo was from our engagement shoot, the one where we're both laughing, where I'm looking at him with such pure adoration, but he had cropped me out completely. The caption read, "Recently single and ready to mingle. Looking for someone special to share adventures with? Recently single." The words hit me like a physical blow. I scrolled through his other photos. Him at the gym, him in his suit from my cousin's wedding last month, him at the beach during what was supposed to be our romantic getaway. Every single photo I'd taken of him, every moment I had captured because I thought he was beautiful and I was proud to be with him, had been repurposed to attract other women, but the photos were nothing compared to the messages. Jessica, 26, marketing coordinator. Can't wait for our coffee date Wednesday. I've been thinking about you all week. Amanda, 24, yoga instructor. Thursday dinner is still on, right? I found this amazing new place downtown that I'm dying to try with you. Brittany, 29, real estate agent. I know you said you're not looking for anything serious right now, which is perfect because I'm just getting out of a relationship too. Friday night can't come soon enough. I kept scrolling, my vision blurring with tears. There were dozens of conversations, some going back months. Some were explicitly sexual, others were sweet and romantic, the same tone he used with me. He had been living an entire parallel life, juggling multiple relationships while planning our wedding. The worst part was reading his responses. To Jessica, "I can't stop thinking about you either. Coffee Wednesday, then maybe we can go back to your place." To Amanda, "I've been looking forward to Thursday all week. I have a feeling we're going to have incredible chemistry." To Brittany, "I love a woman who knows what she wants. Friday is going to be unforgettable." Each message felt like a knife to my chest. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a moment of weakness. This was systematic, calculated betrayal. He had been planning dates with other women while I was picking out flowers for our wedding. He'd been promising other women unforgettable nights while I was writing our wedding vows. I took screenshots of everything, every profile, every conversation, every lie. My kindergarten teacher instincts kicked in. I needed documentation, evidence, proof that this was really happening and not some terrible nightmare. The shower was still running, so I kept digging. I found dating apps I'd never heard of, social media accounts I didn't know existed, even a second phone number he had been using to contact women. This wasn't casual cheating, this was a full-scale operation. The most devastating discovery was a group chat with his groomsmen from 2 weeks ago. "Can't wait for the bachelor party to be over so I can get back to real life," he had written. "Sarah's great, but she's not exactly the most exciting girl in the world. At least the wedding will be nice." His best man had replied, "Dude, you're really going through with this? You know you don't have to marry her just because you've been together for 4 years. Marcus's response, "Trust me, I have my reasons. Sarah comes from money even if she pretends she doesn't. This is an investment in my future." The water in the shower finally turned off. Marcus was right about one thing: I did come from money, but what he didn't know was just how much money. Or that I now had complete access to it. My grandmother, Elena Martinez, had been an extraordinary woman. Born into poverty in Mexico, she had immigrated to the United States in 1952 with nothing but a fierce determination to build a better life for her family. Through a combination of brilliant real estate investments, a successful restaurant chain, and what my family always called an eye for opportunity, she had built a fortune worth over $50 million by the time she passed away when I was 22. But Grandma Elena was also a woman who understood betrayal. Her first husband had left her when their restaurant began to succeed, taking half of what they had built and disappearing with his secretary. She had learned the hard way that people would pretend to love you for what you could give them, not for who you were. So when she set up trust funds for all her grandchildren, she had been strategic about it. The money would be held in trust until we turned 30, unless we got married first. Marriage, she believed, was when we would truly need financial security and independence. But there was a catch that protected us from gold diggers. We would only receive the full amount if we had been completely honest with our spouses about our financial situation before the wedding, or if we discovered our spouse had been dishonest with us first. I had never told Marcus about the trust fund because I had wanted to be loved for myself, not for my potential inheritance. I had watched too many friends struggle with the question of whether their partners truly loved them or just loved their money. When I met Marcus 4 years ago at a coffee shop near the elementary school where I taught, I had made a conscious decision to live off my teacher's salary and keep my family's. Wealth a secret. It had been surprisingly easy to hide. I lived in a modest apartment, drove a reliable but unremarkable Honda Civic, and shopped at Target like any other 20-something teacher. My family had always been discreet about their wealth anyway. Grandma Elena had taught us that flashy displays of money attracted the wrong kind of attention. Marcus had fallen in love with Sarah, the kindergarten teacher, who clipped coupons and suggested cheap dates. He'd been charmed by my humility and down-to-earth nature. How ironic that those qualities were exactly what allowed me to discover his true nature. The trust fund documents were in my safe deposit box at First National Bank, but I had memorized every detail. Upon marriage, I would receive $2 million. Immediately, with the remainder of my inheritance, another $8 million to be distributed over the next 10 years. The money came with no strings attached, no oversight from family members, no requirements about how I spent it. As I sat in that hotel room, looking at the evidence of Marcus's betrayal on his phone, I realized that my grandmother's wisdom had just saved me from a lifetime of being used and manipulated. The irony was almost funny. Marcus had married me thinking I might have some family money he could eventually access, not knowing that I already had more money than he could ever imagine, and that his betrayal had just guaranteed he would never see a penny of it. The trust had been activated the moment we said, "I do" at St. Catherine's Church. While Marcus was showering and probably texting his other women, I was technically worth $2 million, with another $8 million on the way. While he was planning his dates for the week, I was planning how to protect myself from the biggest mistake of my life. But more than the money, what I had inherited from my grandmother was something even more valuable, the knowledge that I deserved better and the resources to make sure I got it. Grandma Elena had always told me, "Mia, never let anyone treat you like you're worth less than you are. And if they try, make sure they regret it." She had been talking about business negotiations at the time, but as I heard the bathroom door opening and watched my new husband walk out with a towel around his waist and a smile on his face, probably thinking about his upcoming dates, I realized her advice applied to much more than business. I quickly closed his phone and placed it back on the nightstand, my mind racing with possibilities. Marcus thought he had married a naive kindergarten teacher with maybe a small family inheritance. He had no idea he had just married a multimillionaire with the resources to destroy him completely. The question was, what was I going to do about it? Marcus emerged from the bathroom looking like the man I had fallen in love with 4 years ago. Tall, dark hair still damp from the shower, that crooked smile that used to make my heart race. Now it made my stomach turn. "Sorry about that, babe," he said, walking over to kiss my forehead. I needed to wash off all that hairspray and cologne. "You know how your Aunt Carmen gets with the hugging." I forced myself to smile, even though I wanted to scream. Of course, I should probably shower too before we ... I gestured vaguely toward the bed, unable to finish the sentence. The thought of being intimate with him now, knowing what I knew, made me feel physically ill. "Actually," Marcus said, glancing at his phone as it buzzed again, "I should probably check this real quick. Could be work, you know how crazy things get on Monday mornings." He picked up his phone and I watched his face light up as he read. What I now knew were messages from other women. Everything okay? I asked, proud of how steady my voice sounded. Yeah, just some guys from work congratulating us again. You know how it is. He typed a quick response, and I wondered which of his dates he was confirming. Marcus sat down on the edge of the bed and pulled me toward him. Come here, Mrs. Williams. I want to talk to my wife. The name that had thrilled me hours earlier now felt like a lie. But I moved closer, letting him wrap his arms around me, trying not to flinch at his touch. I still can't believe we did it, he said, his voice soft and intimate. 4 years ago, when I saw you in that coffee shop grading papers and getting frustrated with your red pen, I never imagined we'd end up here. You were reading over my shoulder, I remembered, despite myself, making jokes about how harsh kindergarten teachers could be. And you told me that kindergartners needed clear expectations and consistent consequences. He laughed. I should have known then that you were going to keep me in line. If only he knew how prophetic those words were. What are you thinking about? Marcus asked, noticing my silence. You seem a little distant. I took a deep breath, knowing I had to play this perfectly. I'm just overwhelmed, I guess. Happy overwhelmed, but still, it's been such a big day. I keep thinking about everything that's going to change now. Good changes though, he said, stroking my hair. We're going to have such an amazing life together, Sarah. I have so many plans for us. What kind of plans? I asked, genuinely curious about what lies he would tell me now. Well, I've been thinking we should probably look into buying a house soon. I know we talked about waiting, but with both our salaries and maybe some help from your family. He paused, clearly fishing for information about my finances. My family doesn't really do that, I said carefully. You know how independent my parents are. Right, of course. I just thought, with your grandmother having done so well, ... He trailed off, but I could hear the hope in his voice. Grandma Elena always said we had to make our own way, I replied. She didn't believe in handouts. I watched disappointment flicker across his face before he covered it with another smile. Of course. I admire that about your family, but we'll do great on our own. My promotion should come through next month, and your teaching salary is steady. We'll build something beautiful together. More lies. I happen to know from Maya, who worked in HR at his company, that Marcus had been passed over for promotion twice this year. His boss thought he was unreliable and unfocused. Now I knew why. I love you so much, Sarah, he whispered, pulling me closer. I promise I'm going to be the best husband you could ever want. Looking into his eyes, seeing what I used to think was sincerity, but now recognized as practiced deception, I made my decision. If Marcus wanted to play games, I would play games. But I would play to win. I love you too, I whispered back, and for the first time that night, I was telling the truth. I did love him. I loved the man I thought he was, and that man deserved to be avenged. I woke up at 6:47 a.m. to the sound of Marcus typing on his phone. He was sitting up in bed beside me, completely absorbed in what I knew were messages from his other women. The morning light streaming through, the hotel curtains illuminated his face, and I could see the slight smile playing at his lips as he crafted his responses. For a moment, I lay there watching him, wondering how I had missed the signs. Had he always been this careful about hiding his phone? Had he always gotten up early to text other people? How many mornings had I woken up thinking he was checking work emails when he was actually planning dates with other women? Morning, beautiful, he said when he noticed I was awake, quickly switching his phone to face down on his chest. How did you sleep? Like a rock, I lied. I had barely slept at all, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. What time is it? Almost 7. I was thinking we could order room service for breakfast, celebrate our first morning as husband and wife properly. He leaned over to kiss my cheek, and I caught a glimpse of his phone screen. A notification from someone named Jessica was visible. That sounds perfect, I said, reaching for the room service menu on the nightstand. What do you think? Should we go all out? Marcus laughed. It's our honeymoon. We should definitely go all out. I scanned the menu, noting the prices. The continental breakfast was $28. The American breakfast was $45. But the champagne brunch for two was $125. Under normal circumstances, as a kindergarten teacher, I would have gasped at spending $125 on breakfast. But these weren't normal circumstances, and I wasn't just a kindergarten teacher anymore. "Let's do the champagne brunch," I said decisively, with a lobster Benedict edition. Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Babe, that's like $150 for breakfast." "Are you sure?" "It's our wedding morning," I said, surprised by how confident I sounded. "When else are we going to do something this extravagant?" He shrugged and smiled. "You're right. We'll put it on the room tab." What he didn't know was that I quietly upgraded us to the penthouse suite yesterday afternoon and would be paying for everything myself. Let him think we were splurging recklessly on his credit card. While I called room service, Marcus went back to his phone. I could hear him typing rapidly, probably confirming his date with Jessica for Wednesday. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here he was, planning his infidelity during our first breakfast as a married couple while I was planning his destruction. "They said 30 minutes, I announced, hanging up the phone. "Perfect. That gives me time to hop in the shower again." Marcus stood up, stretching. "I've got some errands to run this morning, you know. Change my name on a few accounts, update some paperwork for the honeymoon." More lies. I knew his real errand was meeting Jessica for coffee, which, based on their text exchange, was code for something much more intimate. Of course, honey. I should probably start thinking about changing my name too. There's so much paperwork involved. I paused, as if just thinking of something. Actually, maybe I should call the bank this morning. Let them know about my new married status. Marcus froze halfway to the bathroom. "The bank?" "Yeah, you know how financial institutions are about name changes. Better to get ahead of it." I watched his face carefully. "Plus, I should probably update them about our new address once we find a house." "Right, of course." But I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was probably wondering if this meant I had more money than he thought, or if I was just being responsible about our joint checking account after Marcus disappeared into the bathroom. I quietly got out of bed and retrieved my phone from my purse. I had work to do and only 30 minutes before breakfast arrived. First, I Googled divorce attorneys Los Angeles and started making a list. Then I searched for private investigators. If Marcus wanted to play games, I needed professionals on my team. But before I made any calls, I did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. I logged into my bank account for the first time since the wedding and checked my balance, $2,034,847.23. The trust fund had been activated. I was officially a multimillionaire, and my cheating husband had no idea. The shower was still running, so I quickly called the first law firm on my list. It was early, but I figured lawyers who specialized in high net worth divorces probably started their days early too. I was right. "Blackwood and Associates, this is Rebecca speaking." "Hi, I need to speak with someone about divorce consultation." I whispered into the phone, keeping one ear on the shower that was still running. "Of course. Are you looking to schedule an appointment?" "Yes, but I need to move quickly. I just discovered my husband has been cheating, and I need to protect my assets before he realizes I know." There was a pause. "I understand this is urgent. Can you hold for just a moment?" 30 seconds later, a confident female voice came on the line. "This is Patricia Blackwood. I understand you need immediate assistance." "Yes, I got married yesterday, and last night I discovered my husband has been using dating apps and seeing other women. I have screenshots of everything, but I need to know how to protect myself legally." Smart woman. "How significant are the assets we're talking about?" I took a deep breath. "I have access to a $2 million trust fund that activated when I got married, with another $8 million coming over the next decade. He doesn't know about any of it. Jesus Christ." Patricia's professional demeanor cracked for just a moment. "Okay, we need to move fast. Can you be in my office by 10 a.m.? I'll be there." "Good, don't sign anything. Don't make any major financial." decisions together, and whatever you do, don't let him know you're suspicious. We need to document everything before he has a chance to cover his tracks. After hanging up, I quickly searched for private investigators in Los Angeles. I found one with excellent reviews and 24/7 availability. Mitchell Investigations. I called immediately. Mitchell Investigations, this is Tony. I need to hire someone to follow my husband. I just found out he's cheating and I need evidence. For divorce proceedings, how soon do you need to start? Today, if possible. He's leaving the hotel in about an hour for what he claims are errands, but I know he's meeting another woman. I can have someone at your location in 30 minutes. What's the address? I gave him the details of the Grand Palace Hotel and Marcus's description. He drives a black BMW with license plate 7G4X892. I'll text you a photo. Perfect. My rate is $150 per hour plus expenses. I'll need a retainer of $1,500. Done? I'll Venmo you right now? Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, most people don't move this fast or have this kind of resources available immediately. Are you sure you want to proceed this quickly? I'm sure. The man I married yesterday has been lying to me for months, maybe years. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. Understood. I'll have my best investigator on this within the hour. The shower turned off just as I hung up the phone. I quickly transferred the money to the Pi and the law firm, then deleted the call history from my phone. When Marcus emerged from the bathroom, I was innocently scrolling through Instagram, looking at photos from our wedding that friends had started posting. Look at this, I said, showing him a photo of us during our first dance. Maya got such a beautiful shot of us. Marcus glanced at the photo and smiled. We do look happy, don't we? The happiest, I agreed and meant it. I had been happy in that moment, blissfully unaware that my new husband was already planning his. Next betrayal, there was a soft knock at the door. Room service. As we ate our $150 breakfast lobster Benedict with champagne and fresh berries, Marcus kept checking his phone. Each notification made my skin crawl, but I maintained my facade of the blissful newlywed. This is incredible, I said, savoring the lobster. I'm so glad we splurged. Me too. You deserve to be spoiled, Mrs. Williams. Speaking of which, Marcus said, setting down his mimosa, I should probably head out soon. I've got a bunch of paperwork to sort out, changing my name on. My insurance, updating my emergency contacts at work, that kind of thing. Of course, I should probably do the same. I paused. What time do you think you'll be back? Oh, probably around 3 or 4. Some of these places have long lines, and I want to make sure everything's updated properly. His date with Jessica was at 2 p.m., according to their text messages. Coffee was supposed to last an hour, but based on their conversation, I suspected it would run longer. Perfect. That gives me time to call my parents and catch up with Maya. She's been dying to hear all the details about the wedding. Tell her I said thanks again for the speech. It was really sweet. As Marcus got dressed, I watched him carefully. He chose his clothes with more care than usual, his best jeans, the shirt I bought him for his birthday, cologne that he typically saved for special occasions. He was dressing for Jessica, not for errands. You look handsome, I said, and he did. It made everything worse somehow. Thanks, babe. I love you. I love you too. And I did love him, or at least I loved the version of him I thought I had married. But love wasn't going to save him from what was coming. After Marcus left, I called Maya. Sarah, how's married life treating you? Was the wedding night everything you dreamed? Maya, I need you to come to the hotel right now. Bring your laptop. I'll explain everything when you get here, but I need your help with something urgent. Is everything okay? You sound strange. No, everything is not okay, but it's going to be. Maya arrived at the hotel within 20 minutes, armed with her laptop, a box of tissues, and a bottle of wine. She took one look at my face and immediately pulled me into a hug. What happened? She asked, guiding me to the couch in our suite. Handed her Marcus's phone, which he had conveniently forgotten on the nightstand in his rush to meet Jessica. Look at his dating apps. Maya's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, shock, horror, and finally, rage. That motherfucker, she whispered, scrolling through his conversations. Sarah, I am so sorry. You're not surprised, are you? I asked, watching her face carefully. Maya set down the phone and took my hands in hers. I have to tell you something, and you're going to hate me for not saying anything sooner. What do you mean? I saw him on Tinder 3 months ago. I screenshotted it and spent 2 days debating whether to tell you or not. She pulled out her own phone and showed me a screenshot dated 3 months earlier, but then I thought maybe it was an old profile he forgot to delete, or maybe someone was catfishing with his photos. I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. I stared at the screenshot. The profile was identical to what I had seen last night, except the photos were different older ones from before our engagement. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was terrified of being wrong. What if it was a misunderstanding? What if I ruined your relationship over a mistake? You were so happy, Sarah. You were glowing whenever you talked about him. I couldn't bear the thought of destroying that if I was wrong. But you kept the screenshot. I kept the screenshot, she admitted. And I've been watching him like a hawk ever since. Every time we all hung out, I was looking for signs, trying to figure out if my suspicions were right. Did you find any? Maya opened her laptop and pulled up a file labeled Sarah's Wedding. Do not open. Inside were dozens of screenshots, photos, and notes spanning 3 months of investigation. Maya, what is this? I'm sorry. I know it's crazy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So I started documenting things. She opened the first folder. Like how he always kept his phone face down when we were together. How he would step away to take calls. How he never posted. Photos of you two on his personal social media accounts. She was right. Marcus had a public Instagram account with over 3,000 followers. But scrolling through it, you would never know he had a girlfriend, let alone a fiancée. All his photos were of himself, his car, his gym sessions, or nights out with friends. I appeared in exactly 0 posts. I told myself I was being paranoid, Maya continued, but then I started noticing other things. Like how he would suggest group activities instead of double dates when he wanted us to hang out with me, and Jake, how he never wanted to take couple photos in public places. How he always had excuses for why he couldn't attend your school events or family gatherings. She opened another folder labeled Financial Red Flags, and then there was the money stuff. You mentioned he was always broke despite having a decent job. His car payments, his credit card debt, his constant excuses about why he couldn't contribute equally to wedding expenses. I felt like I was seeing my relationship through a completely different lens. How did I miss all of this? Because you loved him. Because he was good at hiding it, and because you trusted him. Maya's voice was gentle but firm. Sarah, this isn't your fault. This is what manipulators do. They create a version of themselves that you fall in love with, and they're very good at maintaining that facade. She pulled up another file. Family warnings. Inside were screenshots of text conversations between Maya and my other friends and family members. Your cousin Maria asked me if I thought Marcus was commitment phobic after he kept deflecting questions about wedding planning. Your mom mentioned to me that he seemed financially responsible, but didn't want to say anything because you seemed happy. Even your dad said something about Marcus seeming too smooth for his liking. Everyone knew? Everyone had suspicions, but we all love you too much to risk being wrong. And honestly, Sarah, you seemed so sure about him. You would light up when you talked about your future together. You had this whole life planned out. None of us wanted to be the one to shatter that unless we were absolutely certain. I thought about my grandmother's diary, which I had read after her death. She had written extensively about her first husband, how charming and romantic he had. Then how all her friends had envied their relationship right up until the day he left her for someone else. My grandmother always said that the women in our family were strong but terrible judges of men. Maybe you're just trusting people who happen to attract users and Myers. Maya closed her laptop and looked at me seriously. But here's what I know about the women in your family. When they get betrayed, they don't just cry about it. They do something about it. What do you mean? I mean, your grandmother didn't just let her ex-husband walk away with half her business. She fought him in court for 2 years and won everything back, plus damages. Your aunt didn't just accept it when her partner was embezzling from their medical practice. She built a case against him and had him arrested. The Martinez women don't just survive betrayal, they make sure it never happens again. Maya was right. My family had a long history of strong women who refused to be victims. My great-grandmother had built a successful seamstress business after. Her husband abandoned her with 3 children. My grandmother had turned her heartbreak into a business empire. My mother had left her first fiancé 2 weeks before their wedding when she discovered he was gambling away their savings. I hired a private investigator this morning, I told Maya. And a divorce attorney. Good, what else do you need? I need to understand exactly how deep this goes. I need to know if there are other women I don't know about. I need to understand his financial situation. And I need to figure out the best way to protect myself and make sure he faces real consequences for this. Maya smiled, and for the first time since I had discovered Marcus's betrayal, I felt like I wasn't alone. Then let's get to work. But first, I need to ask you something important. What? How much money are we working with here? Because if we're going to destroy him properly, I need to know what resources we have available. I took a deep breath and told her about the trust fund. Maya's eyes widened progressively as I explained the full scope of my inheritance. Holy shit! Sarah, you're rich. I'm rich. I agreed. And he has no idea. Then we're going to bury him. Patricia Blackwood's office was exactly what I expected from a high-end divorce attorney, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown LA. Expensive leather furniture and walls lined with law degrees and awards. What I hadn't expected was how young she looked. Patricia couldn't have been much older than 35, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had seen every possible variation of marital betrayal. Mrs. Williams, she said, standing to shake my hand. Please, have a seat. I've reviewed the preliminary information you provided over the phone, and I have to say, your situation is both more straightforward and more complex than most cases I handle. How so? Straightforward because you have clear evidence of infidelity and fraud. Yes, fraud. Because he married you under false pretenses while actively deceiving you. Complex because of the asset protection issues and the timing. You've been married for less than 24 hours, which gives us some advantages, but also some challenges. Patricia opened a thick folder and spread several documents across her desk. First, let's talk about what you're not getting. California is a community property state, which means anything acquired during the marriage is split 50-50 in. A divorce. However, your trust fund predates the marriage and explicitly exposes who have been dishonest about the marriage's foundation. That protects your $2 million, but we need to be strategic about the future payments. What do? You mean, your trust specifies that you'll receive $800,000 per year for the next 10 years, but only if you remain married or if your marriage ends due to your spouse's dishonesty or abuse. If you divorce for any other reason, the remaining funds revert to your grandmother's estate. I felt a chill run down my spine. So, if I can't prove he was dishonest before our marriage, you could lose $8 million. But here's the good news: based on what you've shown me, we can absolutely prove prior dishonesty. These dating app conversations, going back months, the evidence of multiple simultaneous relationships, the group chat with his groomsmen about marrying you for financial reasons, that's a slam dunk case for fraud. Patricia pulled out another document. This is a prenuptial agreement template. I know it's too late for your current marriage, but I want you to see what you should have had. Notice the infidelity clause, the asset protection provisions, the penalty for dishonesty. Your grandmother was smart to build these protections into the trust itself. What about his debts? Maya mentioned he seemed financially irresponsible. I'm glad you asked. Patricia opened her laptop and turned it toward me. I took the liberty of running a basic credit and financial background check on your husband this morning. I hope you don't mind, it's standard procedure for cases involving significant assets. The screen showed a detailed financial report on Marcus Williams. My stomach dropped as I read through it. He has $47,000 in credit card debt across 8 different cards, Patricia said, pointing to the screen. A car loan with payments of $650 per month that he's 3 months behind on. He owes $23,000 in back taxes to the IRS. His checking account is overdrawn and he has no savings. How is that possible? He has a decent job. Had a decent job. According to my contact at his company, he was terminated on Friday for repeatedly missing work and failing to meet performance standards. He was supposed to start job hunting on Monday, which is today. I felt like I had been punched in that stomach. He was fired 3 days before our wedding. And he didn't tell you. Which brings us to another legal issue. He married you while hiding significant financial problems and unemployment. In California, that's considered financial fraud, especially if he was planning to rely on your income or assets to solve his problems. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Sarah, I've been practicing family law for 12 years. And I've never seen a case where someone had better grounds for fraud annulment. You could have this marriage legally erased as if it never happened, with full protection of your assets, and potential damages awarded to you. Damages? For emotional distress, financial losses, wedding expenses, and punitive damages for the fraud. We're talking potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. I thought about our $75,000 wedding, which I had paid for entirely because Marcus claimed his money was tied up in investments. Now I knew the truth. He was broke and had been lying about everything. But here's what I really want to discuss. Patricia continued, annulment versus divorce. Annulment means the marriage never legally existed. Divorce means it existed but is now dissolved. Both have advantages, but given your specific situation, I recommend annulment. Why? Several reasons. First, it's faster. We can probably have this resolved in 30 to 60 days instead of 6 months to a year. Second, it provides better asset protection. Third, it sends a clear message that he defrauded you, which could be useful if we decide to pursue criminal charges. Criminal charges? Potentially? Marriage fraud is a federal crime if it involves financial deception. Given the scale of his lies and your assets, the FBI might be interested. But let's focus on the civil case first. Patricia handed me a stack of documents. I need you to sign these today. They authorize me to represent you, request emergency asset protection orders, and begin the annulment process. The sooner we file, the better protected you are. As I signed each document, Patricia explained the strategy. We're going to document everything, every dating app conversation, every financial lie, every piece of evidence of his deception. Then we're going to confront him with an ultimatum. Sign the annulment papers and walk away with nothing. Or face a public trial where all of this comes out, plus potential criminal charges. What if he fights it? Patricia smiled, and for the first time, I understood why she had such a fearsome reputation. Trust me, Sarah. Once he sees what we have on him and realizes what he's up against, Marcus is going to sign whatever we put in front of him. Men like your husband are bullies and cowards. They only pick fights they think they can win. And this isn't a fight he can win, not even close. By the time we're done with him, Marcus Williams is going to wish he had never heard your name. Back at the hotel, I sat with Maya and Marcus's forgotten phone, staring at the screenshots of his dating conversations. Each message felt like a fresh betrayal, but now I was looking at them with a different purpose. These weren't just evidence of infidelity, they were connections to other victims. I want to contact them, I told Maya, the women he's been talking to. They deserve to know what kind of person they're dealing with. Are you sure that's a good idea? What if one of them is crazy and warns him? Then at least I'll have warned them before he hurts them too. I pulled up Jessica's profile first. She was a 26-year-old marketing coordinator with a bright smile and photos of her hiking and traveling. In her conversation with Marcus, she seemed genuinely excited about their coffee date, asking thoughtful questions about his interests and sharing stories about her own life. I created a fake Tinder profile using a generic photo and the name Sarah. Then I sent Jessica a message. Hi, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think we're both dating the same guy. Marcus Williams? Tall, dark hair, drives a black BMW. While I waited for her response, I reached out to Amanda, the yoga instructor, and Brittany, the real estate agent, with similar messages. Within an hour, all three women had responded, and their reactions were remarkably similar. Shock followed by anger, followed by a flood of questions. Jessica's response came first. Oh my God, yes. Are you serious? I've been seeing him for 2 months. He told me he was recently out of a long-term relationship, but wasn't ready for anything serious yet. Are you dating him too? I decided to be direct. I married him yesterday. I found out about the dating apps on our wedding night. My phone rang almost immediately. This is Jessica? Is this really happening right now? Unfortunately, yes. I'm sitting in our honeymoon suite looking at months of conversations between him and multiple women, including you. He's married? As of yesterday? Jessica's voice was a mixture of disbelief and rage. That lying piece of shit. I'm supposed to meet him for coffee in an hour. Don't go. Or if you do go, confront him about it. I have screenshots of everything if you want to see them. Send them to me right now. All of them. While I was forwarding Jessica the evidence, Amanda called. She was even more furious than Jessica, if that was possible. He told me he was falling. From me, Amanda said, her voice shaking with anger. Last week after after we were intimate, he said he was thinking about deleting his dating apps because he wanted to focus on us. And the whole time he was planning a wedding with someone else? I'm so sorry, Amanda. I had no idea any of this was happening. This isn't your fault. We're both victims here. Amanda paused. You know what? I'm supposed to have dinner with him Thursday. What if I go, but instead of a romantic dinner, I confront him? Record the whole thing? Would you really do that? Hell yes, I would. This asshole has been playing all of us. He needs to face consequences. Brittany's reaction was the most interesting. As a real estate agent, she had developed good instincts about people who weren't trustworthy. I knew something was off about him, she said when we spoke. He was too smooth, too practiced. His stories didn't always add up. And he never wanted to meet anywhere near where he lived or worked. Now I know why. What do you mean his stories didn't add up? Little things. Like he told me he was close with his family, but then he mentioned he hadn't talked to his parents in months. He said he loved to travel, but when I asked about specific places he claimed to have been, his descriptions were vague, and he was always evasive about his job. What did he tell you about his job? That he was a marketing director at a tech startup. Very successful, lots of growth potential. He made it sound like he was making 6 figures and had stock options. I thought about what Patricia had told me Marcus had been fired on Friday. For poor performance. Brittany, he was fired last Friday. The day before our wedding. Are you kidding me? So when he was texting me about our Friday date, he had just lost his job? Apparently, and he owes almost $50,000 in various debts. Jesus! Christ, what a mess. Brittany paused. You know what? I'm a real estate agent, which means I deal with fraud and deception professionally. I've got contacts at credit agencies, background check companies, even some private investigators. Want me to do some digging? Actually, I already hired a pie, but if you want to share information, double quotes, absolutely. This guy needs to be exposed completely. I'm gonna find out everything I can about his finances, his employment history, his rental history, everything. And then I'm going to make sure every woman in LA knows to stay away from Marcus Williams. As I hung up with Brittany, Maya looked at me with admiration. You've just built yourself an army of pissed off women who all want revenge on the same guy. Is that what I did? That's exactly what you did. And it's brilliant because now you're not just some bitter ex-wife trying to destroy her cheating. Husband, you're the leader of a group of women who were all systematically deceived by the same predator. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. I went to the coffee shop anyway. He's here and he looks confused that I'm not showing up. Should I go in there and destroy him publicly? I thought about it for a moment, then replied, Not yet. Let's coordinate this properly. I want all of us to confront him at the same time. When he can't run away or make excuses. What do you have in mind? I looked at Maya, an idea forming in my head. What if we invited him to dinner at a nice restaurant? Made him think one of you wanted to take things to the next level? And then all of us showed up? Maya grinned. That's diabolical. I love it. He's been playing games with all of us. I said, feeling a surge of confidence I hadn't experienced discovering his betrayal. It's time we played a game with him. That evening, while Marcus was presumably with Jessica, though she had stood him up, I found myself sitting alone in our honeymoon suite, holding the handwritten wedding vows we had exchanged just 36 hours earlier. His words, which had moved me to tears at the altar, now read like a blueprint for deception. Sarah, from the moment I met you in that coffee shop, I knew you were special. Not because you're beautiful, though you are, but because you're genuine. In a world full of people trying to be someone they're not, you are authentically yourself. The irony was almost too painful to bear. He had praised me for being genuine while living a completely fabricated life. I promise to be honest with you always, even when the truth is difficult. I promise to put our relationship above my own selfish desires. I promise to be the man you deserve, not just the man I want to be. Every single promise had been broken before he even made it. I needed to get out of the hotel room. The walls felt like they were closing in, and Marcus would be back soon with whatever excuse he had prepared for his failed errands. I grabbed my keys and drove to St. Catherine's Church, where we had been married. The church was empty except for Father Miguel, who was arranging flowers near the altar where Marcus and I had exchanged vows. He looked up as I entered, his face immediately filled with concern. Sarah, what are you doing here, child? Shouldn't you be on your honeymoon? I sat down in the front pew, the same spot where my family had watched me, promised to love and honor a man who had been planning to cheat on me before we even left for our reception. Father Miguel, can I ask you something? Do you think God forgives us when we make terrible mistakes in judgment? He set down the flowers and sat beside me. Of course, child. But what brings this question? You seemed so happy and certain on Saturday. I was happy. I was certain. I was also completely wrong about everything. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots from Marcus's dating profile. I found this on our wedding night. Father Miguel studied the image, his expression growing grave. Oh, my dear child, I am so sorry. I keep thinking about the vows we made in front of God, in front of our families, in this sacred place. How do I reconcile the fact that they were lies from the beginning? Sarah, listen to me carefully. The vows you made were real. Your love, your commitment, your intentions, those were genuine and sacred. The fact that Marcus made those same vows dishonestly doesn't diminish the truth of your heart. But what do I do now? How do I move forward? Father Miguel was quiet for a long moment, looking up at the stained glass window that depicted the story of David and Goliath. You know, your grandmother used to come here when she was struggling with her first husband's betrayal. She would sit in this exact pew and ask me similar questions. What did you tell her? I told her that sometimes God puts challenges in our path not to break us, but to reveal our strength. Your grandmother discovered she was capable of much more than she ever imagined. She built a business empire, raised a beautiful family, and helped countless other women find their own strength. She also made sure her ex-husband faced consequences for what he did. Father Miguel smiled slightly. Yes, she did. Elena Martinez was a woman who believed in justice as much as forgiveness. She used to say that forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them continue to hurt you or others. I thought about Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany, the other women Marcus was deceiving. What if stopping him from hurting others requires ... Dramatic action? Sometimes the most Christian thing we can do is protect innocent people from predators. Your grandmother understood that. She didn't seek revenge out of hatred. She sought justice out of love for the women who might be victimized next. We sat In comfortable silence for a few minutes, surrounded by the peace of the church and the fading afternoon light filtering through the stained glass. Father Miguel, if I annul this marriage, will you think less of me? Child, a marriage based on deception and lies is not a true marriage in God's eyes. You promised to love and honor Marcus Williams, but the man you married doesn't exist. The real Marcus Williams is someone else entirely, someone who was never worthy of your vows. So I'm not breaking my promises to God. You're honoring them. You promised to be faithful to a good man who would be faithful to you. Staying married to a man who has betrayed you and will continue to betray others would be the real sin. As I left the church, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced since discovering Marcus's betrayal. I wasn't just a victim seeking revenge, I was a woman with the resources and moral obligation to protect other innocent people from a predator. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Hey, babe. Errands took longer than expected. Grabbing dinner with my old college buddy who's in town. Be back around 9. Love you. Another lie? According to the pie I had hired, Marcus had spent the afternoon at a bar, apparently drowning his sorrows after Jessica failed to show up for their date. I texted back, no problem. Take your time. I'm having dinner with Maya anyway. Love you too. If Marcus wanted to play games, I was ready to play. But I was going to play to win. The next morning, while Marcus was in the shower preparing for what he thought was another day of job hunting, I was orchestrating the most elaborate deception of my life. If he wanted to play games, I was going to give him the game of his lifetime. I had spent the night crafting the perfect plan with Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany. We were going to trap Marcus using his own greed and dishonesty against him, but we needed the right bait. First, I called a luxury real estate agent in Beverly Hills and explained what I needed. I want to rent your most expensive available property for 1 week. Price is no object, but it needs to be available for a showing this afternoon. I have a $12 million estate in the hills that the owners use for special events, the agent said. The rental fee for a week is $25,000, plus a $10,000 security deposit. Perfect. I'll wire the money within the hour. Next, I called Patricia Blackwood. I need you to create some fake documents for me. Nothing illegal, just some paperwork that makes it look like I'm about to inherit significantly more money than Marcus thinks. What kind of documents? Estate planning papers, maybe a letter from a law firm about a previously unknown inheritance, something that would make a greedy person very interested in staying married to me. I can't create fraudulent legal documents, but I can create what appear to be draft documents for your review. Technically, they would be legitimate paperwork in progress, just not yet filed. That works perfectly. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Marcus thought he had married a kindergarten teacher with a modest family background and maybe some small inheritance potential. I was going to feed his greed by making him think I was about to become significantly wealthier, then spring the trap when he was most invested in our marriage. Around noon, I accidentally left some papers on our hotel room desk where Marcus would see them. The documents, courtesy of Patricia's office, appeared to be correspondence about a previously unknown inheritance from my grandmother's business partner, potentially worth $15 million. To someone skimming quickly, they would look like I was about to become incredibly wealthy. When Marcus returned from his fake job hunting, the P reported he had actually spent the morning at a casino. He noticed the papers immediately. What's all this? He asked, trying to sound casual. Oh, just some boring legal stuff about my grandmother's estate. Apparently there was some business partnership I didn't know about. I shrugged as if it was no big deal. The lawyers want to meet with me tomorrow to discuss some additional inheritance. I watched Marcus's eyes light up with barely concealed greed. Additional inheritance? How much are we talking about? I don't know yet. Could be nothing, could be significant. You know how these legal things go. I gathered up the papers. Maya's picking me up in an hour. We're going to look at some apartments. Apartments? I thought we were going to wait on moving until after the honeymoon. Well, if this inheritance thing pans out, maybe we don't have to wait. Maybe we can afford something really nice. I paused, as if considering something. Actually, Maya found this amazing place in Beverly Hills that just came on the market. The rent is astronomical, but if we're about to have more money. How? Astronomical? 15,000 a month. But Marcus, you should see the photos. It's incredible. Pool, wine cellar, home theater, the works. It's the kind of place where we could entertain, where you could network with successful people. I could practically see the dollar signs in his eyes. Marcus's financial situation was so desperate that the idea of moving into a luxury home with my money was probably the only thing standing between him and bankruptcy. You know what? He said, trying to sound supportive rather than greedy. Maybe we should look at it together. As your husband, I should be involved in these big decisions. Really? You want to come apartment hunting with us? Absolutely. We're partners now. Partners make decisions together. Perfect. Marcus was taking the bait exactly as I had hoped. Okay, but fair warning, Maya's been really weird about you lately. I think she's having trouble adjusting to me being married. She might be a little cold. I can handle Maya, besides once she sees how much I love you and want what's best for you, she come around. As I got ready to leave, I made one more call to Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany. It's happening. He's coming to the apartment showing. Be ready for my signal. Are you sure about this? Jessica asked. What if he gets suspicious? He won't. He's too greedy to think clearly. Besides, by the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. What exactly are you planning to do? I'm going to give him the choice of a lifetime, I said, looking at myself in the hotel room mirror. He can confess everything and walk away quietly, or he can face the consequences of deceiving all of us. And if he chooses to fight, I thought about my grandmother, about Father Miguel's words, about the other women Marcus would undoubtedly victimize if we didn't stop him. Then we destroy him completely. The Beverly Hills estate was everything I had promised and more. Sitting on 2 acres behind massive iron gates, the house looked like something from a Hollywood movie, sweeping staircases, marble columns, floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of the city below. The rental agent, a perfectly polished woman named Victoria, greeted us at the front door. Mrs. Williams, welcome. And you must be Mr. Williams, she said, shaking Marcus's hand. Your wife has excellent taste. This property is truly one of our crown jewels. I watched Marcus's face as we walked through the house. His eyes were wide, taking in the crystal chandeliers, the chef's kitchen with professional-grade appliances, the master suite with its own private balcony and infinity pool. View. This wasn't just luxury. This was the kind of wealth he had probably fantasized about, but never believed he could access. The monthly rent is $15,000, Victoria explained as we toured the wine cellar. But for a year-long lease, the owners are willing to negotiate down to $12,000 per month. $12,000 is very reasonable for a property like this, Marcus said, and I had to suppress a laugh. 2 days ago, he had been worried about a $150 breakfast. Now he was casually discussing $12,000 monthly rent like it was pocket change. What do you think, honey? I asked as we stood on the main balcony overlooking the pool. Could you see us living here? Absolutely. This place is incredible, Sarah. We could host parties here, network with important people. This is the kind of environment where real success happens. Maya, who had been playing her role perfectly as the skeptical best friend, finally spoke up. Sarah, can we talk privately for a minute? We stepped into the master bedroom while Marcus continued admiring the view with Victoria. Are you absolutely sure about this? Maya whispered. This is a huge financial commitment. Maya, if the inheritance comes through, money won't be an issue, and Marcus deserves to live somewhere beautiful. I raised my voice slightly, making sure Marcus could hear, from the balcony. Besides, I trust my husband completely. We're partners in everything now. When we rejoined Marcus and Victoria, I made my move. Victoria, we'd like to put in an application for a year-long lease, starting next week. Marcus's face lit up with genuine excitement. Really? You want to move forward with this? Why not? Life's short, and if we're going to start our marriage, we should start it right. I pulled out my phone. I'll call the bank right now and arrange for the first and last. Month's rent plus the security deposit. As I pretended to call my bank, I watched Marcus calculating in his head. First month, last month, security deposit, we were talking about at least $40,000 up front, plus $144,000 per year in rent. To someone in his financial situation, those numbers must have seemed impossible unless I truly was about to inherit serious money. Actually, Marcus said after I hung up, maybe we should talk about this a little more. That's a lot of money, even with your inheritance. Marcus, the lawyer, seemed confident about the inheritance, and I've always been conservative. With money! I wouldn't suggest this if I wasn't sure we could afford it. I know, it's just ... Maybe we should wait until the inheritance is actually finalized? I could see the internal struggle on his face. His greed wanted the lifestyle this house represented, but his practical side was worried about committing to expenses we couldn't afford. What he didn't know was that I could afford this house easily. I just wanted to see how far his greed would push him. You know what? I said, as if just thinking of something. You're probably right. Let me call the lawyers and get a better timeline on when the inheritance will be available. I stepped into the hallway and pretended to make another call, speaking loudly enough for Marcus to overhear. Hi, this is Sarah Williams. I wanted to check on the status of the estate settlement. What do you mean another $8 million? I thought we were talking about $15 million total. Oh, additional property investments that just came to light. So we're potentially looking at $23 million now. When I returned to the group, Marcus looked like he had been struck by lightning. Everything okay, babe? He asked, trying to sound casual. Better than okay. Apparently, my grandmother's business partners had more investments than anyone realized. The lawyers think the total inheritance could be significantly larger than we originally thought. How much larger? Well, they're still evaluating everything, but potentially $23 million instead of $15 million. I shrugged as if an extra $8 million was just a pleasant surprise. I guess Grandma Elena was even more successful than we realized. Marcus went very quiet, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was probably calculating what his half of $23 million would be in a divorce, not realizing that he would never see a penny of inheritance money that predated our marriage. Victoria, I said, turning to the rental agent, let's go ahead with the application. Marcus, you're okay with this, right? Absolutely, he said, but his voice sounded strained. I just want to make sure we're being responsible. Of course, darling. That's why I married you. You keep me grounded. I kissed his cheek, casing the lie dot as we filled out the rental application. I provided all the necessary financial documentation, bank statements showing my $2 million balance, credit reports showing perfect scores, employment verification from my school district. Marcus provided what he could, though I noticed Victoria's expression shift slightly when she saw his credit report. Mr. Williams, she said delicately, I see there are some irregularities in your credit history. Some missed payments, high. Utilization rates? Those are just temporary issues, Marcus said quickly. I've been between jobs recently, but I start a new position next week. Another lie. Of course, and with Mrs. Williams's excellent financial standing, I'm sure we can work something out. After we left the estate, Marcus was unusually quiet during the drive back to the hotel. I could feel him thinking, processing, calculating. Finally, he spoke. Sarah, can I ask you something about this inheritance? Sure. Did you know about any of this before we got married? The question was loaded, and we both knew it. If I had known about a $23 million inheritance and hadn't told him, what did that say about our marriage? But if I truly hadn't known, then he had just gotten incredibly lucky by marrying me right before I became wealthy. Honestly, I had no idea. The lawyers said these business partnerships were never disclosed to the family. Apparently, Grandma Elena was very private about her investments. I glanced at him. Why? I just ... It's a lot to process. Yesterday, we were a school teacher and a marketing guy planning a modest life together. Today, we're looking at $15,000 a month. Apartments and talking about $23 million inheritances. Does it make you uncomfortable? No, not uncomfortable, just surprised. You never mentioned that your family had this kind of money, because I didn't know we did. I thought Grandma Elena left us each a small trust fund, and that was it. I reached over and took his hand. But Marcus, you know this doesn't change anything between us, right? I didn't fall in love with you for your money, and I hope you didn't fall in love with me for mine. I felt him tense up at the question. Of course not, Sarah. I love you for who you are. Good, because you know what? Even if the inheritance falls through, even if we never see a penny of it, I'm still happy to be married to you. The money would be nice, but it's not why I said yes when he proposed. Marcus squeezed my hand, but his grip felt forced. I feel the same way, babe. Money doesn't buy happiness. As we pulled into the hotel parking garage, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Everything's set for tomorrow night. Amanda and Brittany are ready. Are you sure he'll show up? I looked at Marcus, who was already checking his own phone, probably reading messages from women who thought they were dating a successful single man. He'll show up, I texted back. His greed won't let him stay away. What was that? Marcus asked, looking up from his phone. Just Maya asking about dinner plans tomorrow. She wants to celebrate our new apartment. Sounds good. Should be fun. If only he knew what kind of celebration we actually had planned. The next evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror in our honeymoon suite, applying lipstick with hands that were surprisingly steady. In 30 minutes, Marcus and I would arrive at Nobu Malibu, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Los Angeles, for what he thought was a celebration dinner with Maya. What he didn't know was that Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany would already be seated at strategic tables throughout the restaurant, armed with evidence of his deception and ready to confront him publicly. You look beautiful, Marcus said, appearing behind me in the mirror. He was wearing his best suit, the same one he had worn to our wedding rehearsal dinner, and he looked genuinely handsome. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness for the man I thought I had married. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. I turned to face him. Are you excited about dinner? Maya's been looking forward to this. Absolutely. It'll be nice to celebrate our new place with your best friend. Maybe this will help her warm up to me. I had told Marcus that Maya wanted to take us to dinner to apologize for being cold about our marriage and to celebrate our new Beverly Hills lease. In reality, Maya was currently at the restaurant coordinating with our 3 co-conspirators and making sure everything was perfect for what we had started calling the reckoning. I made us a reservation for 7:30, I said, checking my phone. Maya's meeting us there? Perfect. I can't wait to see the look on her face when we tell her about the inheritance. The fact that Marcus was excited to discuss my fictional inheritance with Maya, someone he barely knew, told me everything I needed to know about his motivations. A man who truly loved me would be more cautious about sharing sensitive financial information. As we drove along the Pacific Coast Highway toward Malibu, Marcus was in an unusually good mood. He held my hand, commented on the beautiful sunset over the ocean, and talked excitedly about our future in the Beverly Hills house. You know what I was thinking? He said as we pulled into the restaurant's valet area. Once we're settled in the new place, maybe we should throw a housewarming party. Invite your family, my friends from work, some of the neighbors. Really announce ourselves as a power couple. A power couple? Come on, Sarah. You're about to inherit $23 million, and I'm on track for a major promotion at work. Another lie. He had been fired and hadn't told me. We're going to be the kind of couple people want to know. The valet took our car and we walked into Nobu, which was exactly as elegant and exclusive as I had hoped. The hostess led us to our table, which had a perfect view of the ocean, and, more importantly, clear sight lines to the 3 tables where Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany were seated. Maya was already waiting for us, looking stunning in a black dress and pearls. She stood to hug us both, playing her role perfectly. Congratulations on the new house, she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. I can't believe you're moving to Beverly Hills. It's so exciting. We're pretty excited too, Marcus replied, settling into his chair. It's going to be a big change, but with Sarah's inheritance coming through, we figured why not dream big. I noticed Jessica look up sharply from her table about 20 feet away. She was dining alone, as planned, and had positioned herself so she could see and hear our entire conversation. Tell me about this inheritance, Maya said, playing her part. Sarah was so vague on the phone. It's incredible, Marcus said, warming to his favorite topic. Apparently Sarah's grandmother had business partnerships nobody knew about. We're talking potentially $23 million. At the table behind Marcus, Amanda nearly choked on her wine. She was there with a female friend, also part of our plan, and they were both listening intently to every word. 23 million? Maya sighed, her voice perfectly calibrated to sound impressed but not envious. Sarah, you never mentioned your family had that kind of money, because I didn't know, I replied truthfully. It's all been a huge surprise. Well, Marcus, you certainly married well, Maya said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I married for love, Marcus said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. The money is just a bonus. Across the restaurant, Brittany was taking photos with her phone, documenting Marcus's lies about our financial situation and his claims about loving me for who I was rather than what I was worth. So, what are your plans for all this money? Maya asked. Well, first the house, obviously. Then maybe some investments, travel, starting a family. Marcus was getting more animated as he spoke, painting a picture of the luxurious life he planned to live off my inheritance. That sounds wonderful. And Sarah, how do you feel about suddenly being so wealthy? Honestly, it's overwhelming. I never expected anything like this. I just hope it doesn't change who we are as a couple. Money doesn't change people, Marcus said confidently. It just reveals who they really are. The irony of his statement was almost too much to bear. Money, or the prospect of it, had indeed revealed who Marcus really was. A greedy, manipulative liar who was perfectly willing to deceive multiple women simultaneously. If it meant improving his financial situation, as if summoned by his words. Jessica stood up from her table and began walking toward us. My heart started pounding, but not from fear, from anticipation. The moment I had been planning for days was finally about to happen. Excuse me, Jessica said, approaching our table with a bright smile. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation about inheritance and new houses. I'm a financial planner, and I just wanted to say congratulations on your good fortune. Marcus looked up at Jessica, and I watched the blood drain from his face as he recognized her. The recognition in Marcus's eyes was immediate and devastating. His face went from confusion to horror to panic in the space of about 3 seconds. Jessica stood beside our table, her smile growing wider as she watched him squirm. Jessica, Marcus said weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Hello, Marcus. Fancy seeing you here? She turned to me with mock surprise. And you must be Sarah. I've heard so much about you. Have you? I asked innocently. How do you two know each other? Marcus opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water, clearly trying to figure out how to explain Jessica's presence without revealing their relationship. We met through mutual friends, he stammered. Actually, Jessica said, her voice carrying clearly throughout the restaurant. We met on Tinder. We've been dating for 2 months. In fact, Marcus, I was supposed to meet you for coffee yesterday, but I had to cancel when I found out you were married. Maya gasped dramatically. What? Oh, yes, Jessica continued, pulling out her phone. Would you like to see our text conversations? There are some particularly interesting ones from last week when Marcus was telling me how much he was looking forward to. Well, let's just say he was looking forward to our date tonight. Tonight? I said, looking at Marcus with perfectly feigned shock and betrayal. But we're here celebrating our marriage and our new house. That's right. Amanda's voice came from behind us as she approached our table. Sarah, I'm Amanda. I think we need to talk. Marcus looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Amanda, what are you doing here? Well, Marcus, since you were supposed to have dinner with me tomorrow night, I thought I'd come see what you were up to tonight. She sat down in the empty chair at our table without being invited. Imagine my surprise when I discovered you're not just seeing me and Jessica, you're actually married. Married? Brittany's voice joined the chorus as she materialized beside our table. Marcus, when we were planning our weekend getaway, you told me you were single. In fact, you specifically said you had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and were enjoying your freedom. The restaurant had gone silent. Every diner in our section was watching the drama unfold, some openly staring, others pretending to focus on their food while straining to hear every word. Marcus looked around the table at me, at Maya, at Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany, and I could see the exact moment he realized he was completely trapped. Sarah, I can explain, he said desperately. Explain what exactly? I asked, my voice calm and controlled. Explain how you've been dating 3 other women while planning our wedding? Explain how you married me on Saturday and immediately started scheduling dates for this week? Explain how you lied about being fired from your job? Explain how you're $47,000 in debt and saw me as your ticket to financial security? His face went white. How do you know about your debts? About your job? About the fact that you told your groomsmen you were marrying me for my family's money? I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots of all his dating conversations, his financial records, and the group chat with his friends. I know about everything, Marcus. Ladies and gentlemen, Maya announced to the restaurant, standing up and raising her wine glass. I'd like to propose a toast to Marcus Williams, who has somehow managed to be engaged to or dating 4 different women simultaneously while being unemployed and deeply in debt. Truly an impressive feat of deception. The entire restaurant erupted in applause and laughter. Several people actually stood up to applaud, and I heard someone shout, "You go, girls!" Marcus tried to stand up, probably to flee, but Jessica placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Oh no, you don't get to leave yet," she said. "We're not done." I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "Marcus, these are annulment papers. Our marriage was based on fraud, your fraud. You have 2 choices. Sign these papers now, agree to stay away from all of us, and walk away quietly, or face a very public legal battle where all of this becomes part of the court record. Sarah, please, we can work this out. I love you. I made mistakes, but you love my money," I interrupted. "You love the idea of marrying someone you thought was naive, enough to support you financially while you continued sleeping with other women. But you know what, Marcus? The joke's on you." "What do you mean?" I smiled, feeling a surge of satisfaction that I had been anticipating for days. I really am inheriting millions of dollars. In fact, I already have access to $2 million, with another $8 million coming over the next 10 years. Everything you thought you were getting by marrying me. You could have had it all if you had just been honest and faithful. Marcus stared at me in shock. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. You married a multimillionaire, Marcus. And now you're losing her because you're a lying, cheating, pathetic excuse for a man." Amanda leaned forward. "Oh, and Marcus? We've all been in contact with the other women you're seeing. There are actually 7 of us total. We've created a group chat. We call it Marcus Williams Victim Support Group. 7, he whispered. 7, Brittany confirmed. And we've posted your photo and dating profiles in every local Facebook group and dating app review site we could find, along with detailed warnings about your tactics." Jessica pulled out her tablet. "We've also created a website called marcuswilliamsisallyair.com with screenshots of all your conversations, photos of your dating profiles, and testimonials from every woman you've deceived. Your reputation is destroyed," Maya said matter-of-factly. "Your credit is ruined. You have no job, no money, and now no wife. But hey, at least you're consistent." I slid the annulment papers across the table to Marcus. "Sign these and we'll let you leave quietly. Refuse and we'll make sure every person in Los Angeles knows exactly what kind of man you are." Marcus looked at the papers, then at the 4 women surrounding him, then at the dozens of restaurant patrons who were still watching our table with fascination. With shaking hands, he signed the papers. "Smart choice. I said, taking the papers. Back. Now get out of my sight. As Marcus stumbled toward the exit, the entire restaurant burst into applause again. Several women came over to congratulate us, and one older gentleman sent a bottle of champagne to our table with a note that read, "From one divorce survivor to another, well done." So, Maya said as we watched Marcus disappear into the parking lot, "How does it feel to be officially single again?" I thought about it for a moment, then raised my champagne glass. It feels like freedom. The video went viral within hours. Someone at the restaurant had recorded the entire confrontation on their phone, and by midnight, cheating husband exposed. At Nobu had been viewed over 2 million times across various social media platforms. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive, hundreds of women sharing their own stories of betrayal, applauding our coordinated takedown and praising us for standing up to a serial manipulator. "You guys are legends," read one comment. "This is how you handle a lying cheater. The way they coordinated this whole thing is iconic," said another. "Plot twist. She's actually rich and he fumbled the bag hard." But along with the support came judgment. Some commenters criticized us for public humiliation, calling our actions cruel and over the top. A few people suggested that Marcus deserved privacy, that we should have handled it privately, that public shaming was never acceptable. "These women are psycho," one user wrote. "Yeah, he cheated, but destroying someone's life on social media is insane. Two wrongs don't make a right," said another. "They could have just divorced him quietly." I tried not to let the negative comments bother me, but they did. Sitting in my hotel room the morning after the confrontation, reading through hundreds of responses to the video, I found myself questioning whether we had gone too far. Maya found me on my laptop at 7 a.m., still scrolling through comments. "Sarah, you need to stop reading those," she said, closing my computer. "You know what you did was right. Was it, though? Some of these people have a point. Maybe public humiliation wasn't the answer." Public humiliation? Maya sat down beside me. "Sarah, Marcus was publicly humiliating you every time he went on a date while wearing his wedding ring. He was publicly humiliating Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany every time he told them he was single. The only difference is that his humiliation was private and yours was public." She was right, but I still felt uneasy about the viral nature of our confrontation. I had wanted Marcus to face consequences for his actions, but I hadn't necessarily wanted to become an internet sensation. My phone rang. Patricia Blackwood. "Sarah, I assume you've seen the video that's circulating?" "Unfortunately, yes." "Well, I have good news and potentially concerning news. The good news is that the annulment papers are being processed and Marcus hasn't contested them. Given the evidence of fraud, you should be legally single again within 2 weeks. And the concerning news? Marcus hired a lawyer yesterday. He's threatening to sue you for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress." I felt my stomach drop. "Can he do that?" "He can try, but he doesn't have a case. Everything you said at the restaurant was true and provable. You have documentation of his lies, his debts, his multiple relationships. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation." "What about the emotional distress claim?" "Harder to prove when he was the one committing fraud. Plus, his lawyer would have to argue that publicly revealing his lies caused him more emotional distress than secretly maintaining multiple relationships while deceiving everyone involved. Good luck with that argument." Patricia paused. "There's something else." Marcus's lawyer contacted the 3 other women as well, threatening similar lawsuits. But here's the interesting part. Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany all called me this morning. They want to file a joint lawsuit against Marcus for fraud and emotional distress. Really? Absolutely. And they want you to join as the lead plaintiff. Since you have the most resources and the strongest case, the idea of prolonging this battle, of keeping Marcus in my life through legal proceedings, made me feel exhausted. But then I thought about the other women who might encounter Marcus in the future, the ones who wouldn't have the resources or support system to protect themselves. What would a lawsuit like that accomplish? Several things. Financial damages for all 4 of you. A permanent legal record of his pattern of deception. And most importantly, it would establish a legal precedent for treating systematic romantic fraud as a serious crime rather than just dating drama. I thought about it. The viral video had accomplished something I hadn't expected. It had started conversations about accountability in dating, about the psychological damage of deception, about the way society often protects men like Marcus while blaming their victims. "Let me talk to the others," I said. "But Patricia, I want you to know whatever we decide, I don't want this to be about revenge anymore. If we pursue legal action, it has to be about prevention, about making sure other women don't go through what we went through." "I understand. And Sarah, for what it's worth, I think you handled this perfectly. Marcus Williams is a predator who targeted vulnerable women systematically. What you did was shine a light on predatory behavior that usually happens in shadows." After hanging up with Patricia, I called Jessica. "How are you holding up?" I asked. "Honestly, I'm embarrassed that I fell for his lies, but I'm also proud of how we handled it. My friends have been incredibly supportive, and I've heard from dozens of women who said the video helped them recognize similar patterns in their own relationships." "Have you thought about Patricia's suggestion about the lawsuit?" "Yes, and I'm in. Amanda and Brittany are too." "We want to do this, Sarah, but only if you're comfortable leading it." I looked at myself in the hotel room mirror, thinking about the scared, betrayed woman I'd been just a week ago versus the person I was becoming. "Okay," I said. "Let's do this right." 3 months later, I stood outside the Los Angeles County Superior Court holding a manila folder that would officially end the strangest chapter of my life. Inside were the finalized annulment papers, Marcus's signed settlement agreement, and the foundation documents for the Sarah Martinez Foundation for Relationship Fraud Prevention. The legal battle had been swift and decisive. Marcus's threats of defamation lawsuits had evaporated the moment Patricia presented our evidence to his attorney. Faced with documented proof of systematic fraud, financial deception, and multiple counts of what could be classified as relationship abuse, Marcus had chosen to settle rather than face a public trial. The settlement terms were simple. Marcus would pay each of us $25,000 in damages, funded by liquidating the few assets he had, agree to attend mandatory counseling for compulsive lying and emotional manipulation, and sign a legally binding agreement to disclose his relationship history to any future romantic partners for the next 5 years. More importantly, our case had attracted attention from family law experts and victim advocacy groups. What had started as 4 women exposing one lying man had evolved into a broader conversation about the legal system's treatment of romantic fraud. "Sarah?" Jessica called out as I walked down the courthouse steps. She, Amanda, and Brittany were waiting for me, all of us dressed professionally for our final meeting with Patricia. "How does it feel?" Amanda asked, giving me a hug. "Honestly, anticlimactic. I thought I'd feel more victorious." "That's normal," Brittany said. "Closure rarely feels as dramatic as we expect it to." We walked to a nearby coffee shop where Patricia was waiting with the final paperwork. She looked pleased as we approached her table. "Ladies, I have excellent news. The judge signed off on all our settlement terms, and Marcus has completed his first month of court-ordered therapy. His therapist's report indicates he's beginning to understand the psychological damage his behavior caused." "Do we think he's actually changing?" Jessica asked. "Too early to tell, but the legal structure is in place to protect future partners. If he violates any of the disclosure requirements, he faces immediate contempt of court charges and potential jail time." Patricia handed me a thick folder. "Sarah, these are the incorporation documents for your foundation. You're officially a nonprofit organization focused on educating people about relationship fraud and providing legal resources for victims." The foundation had been my idea during one of our legal strategy meetings. With my inheritance and the platform our story had created, I realized I had an opportunity to turn our experience into something that could help other people. "We've already received over $200,000 in donations from people who saw your story," Patricia continued, "and 3 other law firms have agreed to provide pro bono services for future cases similar to yours." "Have there been other cases? 14 so far?" Women who saw your viral video and realized they were in similar situations. Some discovered multiple relationships, others found financial deception. One woman discovered her fiancé was already married to someone else. The scope of the problem was staggering. Marcus hadn't been an anomaly. It was part of a pattern of behavior that affected thousands of people but rarely faced legal consequences. What's our next step? Amanda asked. Education and advocacy. We're developing workshops for dating safety, legal resource guides, and working with dating apps to implement better verification systems. Patricia smiled. You started something much bigger than yourselves. As we left the coffee shop, I felt a strange sense of completion. The scared, betrayed woman who had discovered her husband's infidelity on her wedding night had evolved into someone who could protect others from similar experiences. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Saw the news coverage of the settlement. So proud of you. Dinner tonight to celebrate? I was about to respond when another text came in from an unknown number. Hi Sarah, my name is Jennifer and I think my fiancé is doing the same thing your ex-husband did. Can you help me? I showed the text to Jessica, Amanda, and Brittany. Are you ready for this? Jessica asked. Being the public face of relationship fraud prevention, I thought about my grandmother, about the lessons she had taught me about using strength to protect others, about turning pain into purpose. Yes, I said, typing a response to Jennifer. I think I am. 6 months after what should have been the beginning of my marriage, I had found something better. A mission that gave meaning to my pain and a way to ensure that Marcus Williams would be the last man to destroy my life through deception. The Foundation's motto, inscribed on a plaque in our new office, came from something my grandmother had written in her diary. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them, and then make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Justice, I learned, wasn't just about punishing wrongdoers. It was about preventing future victims. 1 year later, I stood in the garden of my actual new home, not the rented Beverly Hills mansion I had used to trap Marcus, but a beautiful craftsman house in Pasadena that I had bought with my inheritance money. It was smaller than the mansion, but infinitely more meaningful because every inch of it was truly mine. The Sarah Martinez Foundation had grown beyond anything I had imagined. We now had a staff of 12, including 2 full-time attorneys, 3 counselors specializing in relationship trauma, and a team of educators who traveled to colleges and community centers, teaching people how to recognize and avoid romantic fraud. In 12 months, we had helped 847 people escape or recover from deceptive relationships. Some cases were as dramatic as my discovery of secret marriages, hidden children, or elaborate financial scams. Others were subtler but equally damaging patterns of lying, emotional manipulation, or systematic isolation from friends and family. The Foundation's most successful program was our Red Flags workshop, which taught people how to identify warning signs early in relationships. Marcus's behavior, we had learned, followed predictable patterns that most relationship predators used: love bombing, isolation, financial probing, and gradual boundary erosion. Sarah? Maya called from my kitchen, where she was helping me prepare for today's celebration. The caterers are here and Jessica just pulled up. Today marked the 1-year anniversary of our confrontation at Nobu, and we were throwing a party not to celebrate destruction, but to celebrate the community and purpose that had grown from our experience. Jessica walked into my backyard carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing a huge smile. Can you believe it's been a year? Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, I replied, hugging her. Over the past year, Jessica, Amanda, Brittany, and I had become genuine friends. Our shared experience had created a bond that went beyond revenge or legal proceedings. We were women who had been tested, had fought back, and had chosen to use our experience to help others. Any word from Marcus lately? Amanda asked as she and Brittany arrived together. Actually, yes. I pulled out my phone and showed them a message I had received that morning. His therapist sent me a progress report. Apparently, he's been following all the court requirements, attending therapy regularly, and has actually disclosed his history to 2 women he started dating. Really? Brittany looked surprised. He's actually telling people the truth. According to his therapist, yes. And both women chose to continue dating him anyway, with full knowledge of his past. That's actually kind of encouraging, Jessica said. Maybe people can change. Maybe, or maybe he's just learned to be more careful about his lies. I shrugged. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. That was the most important lesson I've learned over the past year. Marcus Williams was no longer my responsibility or my concern. My responsibility was to the foundation, to the people we helped, and to the new life I was building. Speaking of which ... Ladies, I have an announcement, I said as our guests began arriving. Remember David Chun, the attorney from the victim advocacy group? The cute one who's been helping with our legal workshops? Maya asked with a knowing smile. That's the one. We've been ... spending time together outside of work. Sarah Martinez, are you dating someone? Jessica demanded. Maybe. Possibly. Yes. I couldn't help but grin. And before you ask yes, I told him everything about Marcus on our first date. Yes, he's been completely transparent about his own past. And yes, I had Patricia run a background check on him. And Amanda prompted. And he's exactly who he says he is. No hidden debts, no secret ex-wives, no dating app profiles. He's just a good man who does advocacy work because he believes in justice. When do we get to meet him properly? Brittany asked. Right now, I said, as David walked through my back gate carrying flowers and wearing a nervous smile. The afternoon was perfect. 50 people came to celebrate the foundation's work donors. Staff members, workshop attendees, and other advocates in the field. We shared stories, strategies, and hope for the future as the sun began to set. I found myself standing alone for a moment, looking at my garden and thinking about how dramatically my life had changed. A year ago, I had been a betrayed bride, hiding in a hotel bathroom, reading evidence of my husband's deception. Today, I was surrounded by genuine friends, doing meaningful work, and cautiously opening my heart to love again. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Hi. I saw your foundation's website and I think I need help. My boyfriend has been lying about having a job and I just found out.